Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty fascinating. How the British Empire managed to take over huge parts of India, not just with armies and cannons, but with paperwork. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a wild story of clever policies, convenient excuses, and a massive plan for expansion.
So let's start with that big question. How do you actually conquer a country with paperwork? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But back in the mid-19th century, the British Empire basically perfected the art. It's a story of pure ambition, some very shrewd legal maneuvering, and a major clash of cultures.
And at the very center of this whole operation is one man, Lord Dalhousie. He was the Governor General of India from 1848 to 1856, and he had a single laser-focused goal: bring as much of India as he possibly could under direct British rule.
Now, to pull this off, Dalhousie knew he couldn't just rely on brute force. He needed something smarter. And he had a secret weapon, you could say, a very clever and deeply controversial political tool called the doctrine of lapse. So what on earth was it?
Okay, so here's the gist of it. The policy said that if a local ruler, one who was allied with the British, died without a direct, natural-born heir, his kingdom would automatically lapse. Basically, it would just be absorbed by the British. And here's the really crucial part. This gave them the power to approve or, more importantly, deny any adopted successor. It was the perfect legal loophole for a takeover.
It was a simple three-step playbook, and it was devastatingly effective. Take the state of Satara, for example. In 1848, the ruler died. On his deathbed, he adopted a son, which was a totally normal custom. But since he didn't get prior British approval, they just said, nope, doesn't count. And poof, his kingdom was gone, swallowed up by British India. So, armed with this new policy, Dalhousie just went for it. He kicked off this rapid-fire wave of annexations. You could literally watch the map of India change right before your eyes as one kingdom after another started to fall, just like dominoes.
And the speed of this thing was just astonishing. We're talking less than a single decade, and all these independent kingdoms simply vanished. The pattern was always the same. A ruler dies without a natural son, and a swift British takeover follows. Satara, Sambalpur, the famous state of Jhansi, all of them gone.
But there was a problem, a big one. There was this one kingdom that was a huge prize, but it just didn't fit the mold, the incredibly wealthy and strategic state of Awadh. Dalhousie wanted it badly, but his main weapon, the doctrine of lapse, was completely useless here. You see, the whole doctrine of lapse thing just didn't apply, not even a little bit. The rulers of Awadh, the Nawabs, have been loyal allies to the British for nearly a century. But here's the real kicker. The current Nawab had plenty of sons, so there was no lapse to exploit. And this was the big challenge for Dalhousie, right? What do you do when your go-to move, your main weapon, is totally off the table? You can't just give up on such a valuable prize. You have to get creative. You have to find a different reason. And, well, they found one. If the legal angle wasn't going to work, they figured, hey, maybe a moral one would. The entire strategy pivoted from law to, let's call it, accusation. This became the new official story. Suddenly, the British weren't conquering. Oh no, they had a duty to step in. They had to free the people from their supposedly terrible ruler, Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. They weren't invaders anymore, they were liberators. And to sell this story, they had to paint a very specific, very unflattering picture of the Nawab. They basically launched a PR campaign against him, saying he was neglecting his duties, that he cared more for poetry, music, and his own pleasure than he did for his people. This was the image they used to justify the takeover in 1856.
But was that the real reason? Was it really about saving the people of Awadh from a so-called bad king? Well, to find the real answer, all you have to do is follow the money.
Because, of course, there was another side to this story, and it was all about economics. In the eyes of the British, Awadh wasn't just some misgoverned state, it was a golden opportunity. It was a huge, untapped market for all the goods being churned out in Manchester, and it was a vital source of the raw cotton they needed to fuel their industrial revolution. The real motivator, it seems, was profit.
So, on the grounds of misrule, the British East India Company deposed the Nawab and exiled him to Calcutta. His consolation prize? An annual pension of 1.2 million rupees. Now, that might sound like a lot, but it was just a tiny fraction of the revenue they were about to collect from his former kingdom. Just like that, Awadh was under British control.
So when you step back and look at the big picture, you see this brilliant and totally ruthless dual strategy. They had a playbook for every situation. A state doesn't have a direct heir? No problem. Use the doctrine of lapse. The state does have an heir. Fine. Then use the pretext of misgovernment. Either way, the final destination was exactly the same: annexation.
And this whole episode just shows how easily a policy, a law, can be shaped and twisted to serve ambition. It leaves us with this big question that just echoes through history. The key takeaway here isn't just about conquering territory. It's about how the ultimate power is the power to write the rules of the game and then rewrite them whenever it suits you.